Hi all, welcome to my channel, welcome to my world. This is the World of Wayne. We have got a first today on the World of Wayne channel. First off, I'm going to be doing stages 67 to 71 of the Fanhome release of Build the Back to the Future DeLorean. But in issue 71 there is an article which I will show you around about the restoration for the Back to the Future A car, which was produced, it was made on film and it was produced by Steve Concotelli. Now the good news is Steve is actually going to be joining me for stage 71, so stay tuned for that.
Are we back? We're back.
How exciting, huh? That's why I've got my Back to the Future stuff on at the moment. So I'm actually filming this on Friday. Steve is 6 hours behind me, so we are going to be doing that tonight. And hopefully this video is going up on Tuesday. Hopefully, we'll have to see. But today we are going to be doing the doors, or the first of the doors, for the DeLorean. Now, if you do want to get this for yourself, I have put a link in the video description. And there's also that QR code on the screen. It's going to be a long video, but I'm telling you, the insights that you're going to hear later on, I'm sure are going to be brilliant. I've lined up loads of questions. It's going to be really good. Anyway, without further ado, let's get cracking. So here we go, stage 67. This is what it's looking like. And as you can see, we're going to start the door and we're starting to put some elements in for the door just like this. And this is the rest of the magazine. Let's do this. So lots of bits to start off with. So first thing I want to do is I want to take this part of the door here and I've got a front lock which I'm about to put in just to that little detail there. Now this looks just like that when it's in, and it's going to be held in from the other side with a JP screw. So this is a flange screw. Let's just get this in here. Now on the other side of the door, because obviously these are gull-wing doors, we've got the rear door catch. That's going to be going into this position here, and it can only go one way, but we do again have a locating lug, so that's going to help direct that where it actually goes, just like that there. Once again, a flanged JP screw to hold that in. Now if I'm just putting that this way round, we've got some lenses to go in here. Now colour blindness again, they look so similar to me, it's ridiculous, but I'm confident this time. Hopefully you can help me out. I think this one's kind of like an amberish colour and these two are red. I'm sure I'm right, we'll have to see. So I want the two red ones. One is going to go in here just like that. And the other one is going to go onto this angled section over here. I'm just sliding them down like that. So that's how they sit in. Now we have these two clamps to hold things in. They are slightly different. The tabs on this one is in the centre. The tabs on this one's just off to the left there. So it's the one that's in the centre is going to go into that position there that you could probably just about see on the top camera. It's going to go over the top of this so that we're holding that lens in, just like that. And I'm actually holding that in with a KP screw. So I've got that there, screw that in, perfect. So for the other lens, different sort of adapter this time. We've got this gold one here. Now that's going to be going over the two lugs that we've got there, or one lug, sorry, and we've got one hole to screw this in. So that's going to keep that one in just like that. That's held in with an AP screw. And then finally we get to put this, I'm hoping, orange one into place. That's just going to go into the point just at this end over here. And this is where we're going to be using this bracket and one of the KP screws. So screw that nice and tight into place. And now as you can see, all of those lenses are now in. Put that to one side. And I've got the strap, which is going to enable us to open and close the door. Now this looks just like this here. What I want to do is push this hook to the end, grab this part here, and I'm going to be putting it down one side and up the other. So that's looking like that. Roll it round on itself, and I'm going to be threading the other end of this belt through this D-shaped ring. Just like that. So that is how the door strap's looking. I'm going to be putting this into place just onto this section here. It can only go in one way, as you can see, fitting in like that, and that's held in with two AP screws. So one that side and one this side. Then I've got this control panel, which looks like that. That's going on the other side of this section here, just over the top, so that these are facing down like that. Once again, held in with AP screws. One there. So that's the last one going in there. And with that in place, that's all there is to do in that stage. So in stage 68, here's the magazine. We've got a big wire here for an LED, and we've got some of the mechanism for the little window by the look of it. So we're going to be putting the wire in so that these light up when the door opens, putting that into place, and then we're going to start the mechanism for that small window, looking just like that. This is the rest of the magazine. Here's stage 68, get that open. And the first thing to do is to put these LEDs in. Now I can see this quite clearly. We've got a yellow LED, and we've got two red ones. So bringing over what we were working on last time, I'm going to be putting the yellow one into the hole in the bracket here. Just get that pushed all the way in. And then the two red ones are going to go into the other brackets. One here. And one over here. Now I'm going to make sure that I put these wires away from these brackets here, because I don't want them impeding when I put the top section down. I'm going to move this one out the way, because as you can see, I don't want that to impede that hole there. But that's looking good. Now the rest of this is going to be going up here, and it's going to come out the top of the door just like that there. Now to trap that wire into place, I've got a little catch to put in there, which looks like this. The little lug on this goes into the bigger hole, just so you know. The smaller hole's for the screw. So that's in there just like that. It's held in with an AP screw. We've got some more in this stage. Perfect. Then I'm going to start putting some of these gears into place. So the first one I've got is this small one here, looking like that. That's going to go into the middle, just here. Whoops. And I'm holding that in with a flanged HP screw. Perfect. And that one's in fine. Then I've got this bigger cog here, and I want to make sure the indented side is facing upwards. That's going to go on this very bottom one here, and this is what's going to enable us to roll the window up and down from underneath. Once again, a HP screw in here. And then finally, I've got the big cog here, again, the indented side to be facing upwards this time, so the flat side's down. That's going to go on top of the wire, but it is going to interlock with both of those that we put in. Once again, one of the flanged HP screws to keep that into place. Perfect. Now, the smaller window, which has got a rack here, is going to be going onto this section just here. It's going to sit like that. And eventually we've got the other window, which is in here as well, as you can see, which is going to go on the top. But at the moment, that's all there is to do in that stage. In stage 69, here's the magazine. And it looks like we've got, a door panel. This is going to look great. So we've got the door panel here. We're going to be putting some trim on it. We're going to be attaching the window from the last stage in. We're actually going to be doing one of the wing mirrors here as well. Putting all of that into place. So by the end, that looks like that. This is going to be a great stage. Here's the rest of the magazine. So, got this in here. Let's get this open. Look at that. Okay. So I don't want to take any risks in this stage. So I'm bringing up my nice fluffy mat that Mrs. Welder Wayne done for me. And bring out this door. And that looks just like this. Excellent. And just as a guide, there you go to my head. All metal, and it's all brushed like the real DeLorean is. Okay, we're going to be putting the door barrel on first. I've got that here. It's a D-shaped pattern, which is going to go into the hole here. And make sure that fits flush in there. Now it's going to be held in from the other side with an AP screw. So I'll just screw that in there. Then I've got some trim going along the middle. On the top camera, that looks like this. It's just going to be going into the holes here. I'm pushing that in to make sure it's flat, but that one's held in by JP screws from the other side. Turn that over. There's 4 places for this to screw in, so I've got 2 just here. Don't do these screws up too tight because you are going into plastic. You don't want to round the thread. You'll know you've done that because your screw's just going to keep turning and turning and turning and not doing anything. So that's how that's looking at the moment. Get the glass for the last stage. Try not to touch it. I want it this way round. Probably best on the top camera, and then that's going to go in there just like that. And I'm screwing this in with NM screws. Now, even though we're going into metal for this, you want them tight, but not too tight because you've got risk of cracking that acrylic there. So once it's tight by hand, leave it. Do the same on that side. Perfect. So that's with the glass in. I can put that to one side. I can lose my mat now because I'm going to get the parts out for the wing mirror. And what I want to do is take these 2 parts here and just put this lug into this side here. So I can move, but I do need to hold this together with a JP screw. Remember, that's one of these flanged ones. You want it quite tight, but I do want to have some leeway on it so I can move it. Perfect. Take this glass here. Now, there is a plastic film over the top. I don't remove that, but I do want to remove the stickiness from behind it. The last thing I'm going to do on this build is remove that bit of plastic because it's going to get fingerprints all over it. But I'm going to be putting this into the indent on this side. And that's got in good. Just holding that into place. So there we go, that's in position. Bring the door back over. I think I can get away without using the mat for this section because this is then going to go into that point just there. It's held in from the other side with 1 AP screw. I've got that here already. Just into this hole here. And there you go. That's the wing mirror in place. Right, bring my mat up. And what we created here, making sure no wires are kinked, I want to keep this one in there like that. Turn it around so it's coming out the top, and I'm going to be placing this on the inside of this. Now, obviously, we've put in that wing mirror now. So it might be best, as I said, that you can move it. It's just to fold it in like that, and that's going to stop that breaking. Okay, I'm holding the wire in my hand, and I also don't want this window to fall out here either. So I'm going to have to use gravity, I'm guessing, to put this in. Just lining up the lugs. And there we go, that's gone in. Lovely and smooth like that. Now it's held in with 4 DM screws. And there you go, that's in. So I am just going to check the operation of that window. As you can see, that can go up and down, no problems at all. Let me just make that fully closed. Perfect. And that is all there is to do in that stage. Excellent. So that leads us on to stage 70. Here's the magazine. We've got some a hinge panel now to go in and a hydraulic arm. That's going to look like that. We're going to be putting what looks like a headliner in, putting the hydraulic arms in, and then we actually get to fit this onto the car. So that's going to be pretty impressive as well. And this is the rest of the magazine. So here's the parts for stage 70. Now I do remember this from the first time I did this build. So hopefully I can give you some advice for this. Now this time, rather than bring up the whole mat, because this is quite delicate work, I'm just going to be putting a tea towel down there. Bring the door back over. Check the hinges on the top here are all intact and they're able to move. They look good to me. Okay. And I'm going to be lying this down onto this section here. Now I do want the wire here to be coming between these points so that when I put it out or put it on, let me just do a quick dry fit. This is going to come out of that little slot that you can see at the top there. The other thing you want to do is make sure that these paddles here and here are clamping down the inner frame like that. So that is looking pretty good there. Now I'm holding that in with NM screws. Again, I'm going into metal, so I have put this in oil. That's the last one just going in here. Put the door to one side, and I'm bringing over, wow, it's heavy, the top body that we've been working on previously. Now, this is the side that we're working on. So I was going to get these wires out of the way, and I'm hoping all cameras can see this. We've got a little indent here. That's going to be for this hydraulic, which actually just sits into that indent just there, like that. Now I've got a tiny tab. It's a metal tab here, which is going to fit on top of that, this way round. And it's going to be held in with QM screws. Now I find loading them up first, give it a little bit of oil, but as you see, I'm holding this more like a pen than a screwdriver, because this is going to get a little bit fiddly. So putting that in here and get this side screwed in. In the last stage, of course, in true Word of Wayne fashion, I forgot one bit to put on, which you're probably all shouting, which was this one here. That's just going to be going over the top here. It's quite an easy stage, actually. And it's only held in with one screw as well. So once I've got that lined up, which I'm just doing now, there you go. Just need one of these AP screws and screw this into place. I completely forgot to do that last time, so there you go. That's in. So just double check that this can still move, which it can, so that's good. What I'm going to do now is take the door, and I want to thread through the hole at the top this lead, just like this, including this paper section. Now I'm just correcting an error, because you know I make loads of errors, I make mistakes so you don't have to. I forgot to put these tabs in. This came in stage 69, so these just go in here and they're held in with AM screws. Got them here. Let me just screw these in both sides. So now they're back in place, I can just put this back together again. And then make sure the door is fitting flush in there like that. That looks good. I like that. Right, what I'm going to do, branching away from the instructions like I just did, I'm going to put some masking tape in a couple of places just over the top here and on each side of the door, because I'm going to need to turn this upside down and I don't want that door moving. Just like that. Turn it over. There you go, the door's still in place. And with these tiny QM screws that I've got, a bit of oil, they're going to go into the positions just here. So one there. Just enough till you can feel hand tightness. You don't need to go to town making these as tight as you can. You just need them hand tight. And one in the outer hole over this side. So that door is now attached to the car. As a matter of fact, because I keep turning this over, I don't want this bonnet opening either. So I am just going to put some masking tape on either side of the bonnet here. Okay, just for now, I'm going to remove the masking tape from these parts. And then once again, load up one of the tiny QM screws, because I'm about to attach this bracket here. Hopefully, you might be able to see this. Just into the hole here. Get that screwed in all the way. Excellent. So with that in, as you see, this can now close and open, no problems at all. Excellent. I am going to secure this door back down though. I don't trust things moving around. Now at the end of this stage, we have also got this block. Now this block, they don't tell you what it's for. It's actually to wedge the door open. So when you lift the door up, actually let me demonstrate it. It does mean I've got to take off this again. Basically the door isn't going to be able to hold itself open. As you can see, it's too heavy, and that's what these wedges are for. What you do is you slip the wedge just into the top section of the door here. And as you can see, it will keep the door open like that. And if you don't want the door open, you just take it out and the door will close. But that's all there is to do in that stage. So that just leaves the last stage of this pack, and boy have I been looking forward to this. So here's the magazine. As you can see, we're going to be starting to do the other door, and that looks like this. Now, we've done this one, so I'll be whizzing through this stage, but this is what I was on about. Now, this is Steve Concotelli. This is the Outatime. Now, this spans 2 issues of this. So we've got an article in this one, we've got an article in the next one as well. And it's this that we're going to be talking about. And it's also this that I interviewed Steve on Friday evening to find out all about this. We talked about the DeLorean build as well. So, hope you enjoy this. Check this out.
Time was not kind to the time machine.
It had been sitting out in the rain for years, and all these pieces started to fall off the car.
Fans would go out there to get a collectible, a memento.
The flux capacitor and the time circuits were missing. The most essential parts of the time machine were just gone.
Made me feel sad. We were definitely at risk of losing the car forever.
I felt, no, no, no. Something has to be done. I knew we had to find a way to save the time machine. There was just no question about it.
This was a full-on museum quality restoration.
This is something that's unprecedented in film history.
The original flux capacitor is the one.
It was almost unbelievable that something so old can come back from the dead. It's alive!
The amount of work that it took to restore this car was staggering.
The wires had to be exactly how the wires were. The colors of the wires had to be right.
I think the current restoration team is insane.
Oh my God.
You guys are blowing me away with this.
The time circuits in the A car didn't work at all. It was all movie magic, and Joe wanted me to make it actually work.
So awesome.
Everyone was so excited because the DeLorean's becoming the time machine again. It's being resurrected.
Whoa, this hasn't looked as good since the movies.
Universal Studios trusted us with this icon. I hope we did them proud.
This was important to the studio. It's so important to the fans of the movie, and they gave it their all.
Like I told the guys, our pain is temporary, but the car will be perfect forever.
As promised, everyone, I'm here with Steve Concotelli, who was let me get this right, you're the writer, director, editor, producer, and you even created the SFX for the Outatime restoration of the DeLorean film.
I did. It's much easier to just say that I created the movie. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's probably best, all in one shell there. Now, what inspired you to actually start this? Because I'm guessing, looking at the posters behind you there, you've been a big fan of Back to the Future.
A huge fan. I've been a Back to the Future fan. I was old enough to actually see it in theaters when it came out. And, it really started a couple of years before with the restoration of the Ecto. And I don't know how familiar you are with the Ecto, but, the Ecto underwent a restoration, I think in 2007 for the video game. And when I watched, they cut it together like a 15-minute documentary they put on YouTube with Dan Aykroyd, and I saw it and I said, oh, man, that's really awesome, but I would love to see more. I wish they would go more in depth. And I said, oh, if they ever do one about the time machine, I hope they just show all the cool stuff about it. And then, little did I know, ironically, I would be the person to do that. But the restoration really came about with Joe Walzer. Joe, the fan community knows Joe. He's one of the best fan time machine builders in the world. He produced the 2010 We're Going Back celebration. And so when Bob wanted the time machine restored, he went to Joe. And then when Joe assembled his team of the best time machine builders, he found the best time machine builders, but then me. And I wasn't the time machine builder at all. But I come from a documentary film background. And so I said, hey, here's my chance to make this amazing, or hopefully amazing, documentary about the restoration of the time machine. And so I just started shooting. Like day one, when the time machine arrived, I simply started shooting footage in hopes that I would be able to turn it into something. And lo and behold, after 4 years of filming, I finally turned it into Outatime.
So was Joe's team already established when you started filming, or when it was just on the on the blueprint stage, if you like?
I wasn't kind of involved. I had been friends with Joe before that, so as he was gathering the team, I had plans to start shooting, so they kind of overlapped. So, I mean, I think team members even kept coming on board as the restoration went along. So,
Right.
yeah.
Okay, cool. So what was the biggest challenges you faced during the production of Out of Time then?
Just finishing the film, it's hard to say because the DeLorean, like restoring the car itself, was a gigantic challenge, and it was a tremendous amount of pressure for Joe and the team. And then making the movie about it was my own personal challenge. The biggest challenge was, is Universal going to let me release this? If I'm being completely honest, because I was filming it. Bob knew what I was doing, but Universal proper really didn't know. And so I was documenting it. The restoration was a year. I shot interviews for another year. And then I'm like, boy, Bob, at some point, Universal has to approve this.
Yeah.
And, knowing the state the car was in, are they really going to let me tell this story that they didn't pre-approve? But thankfully, Bob Gale was completely supportive. And he goes, try to make a good movie and we'll worry about that later. So once Universal saw the movie and I was waiting for them to approve it, that was the worst part because they could have just killed the whole movie.
Yeah.
But thankfully they loved it and they liked it enough that they asked to put 12 minutes on the Blu-ray, the 30th anniversary Blu-ray. So I did its own special cut down for the Blu-ray, which is amazing.
Wow. So let me get some timelines right here. So I'm guessing after the Back to the Future 3 movie, I believe that the DeLorean went to Universal Studios in 1990. I don't know if that's right, around about that sort of time. Now, it was sitting there for like 25 years, from what I understand. It was pretty much in that LA sun, as you do brilliantly document in the Out of Time documentary there. But in 1996, there was another Universal prop there that unfortunately went. I don't know if you know about that story, which was the orca from Jaws.
I vaguely know the orca story because John Murdy had mentioned it, but if there's feel free to tell me.
Well, all I know is that Steven Spielberg one day used to go on to the lot just to chill out, I suppose, and just sit on the orca and stuff. But he went one day and it had disappeared. And it wasn't there anymore. And obviously, when he found out what happened to it, he wasn't happy. He does actually document it online, saying that, whoever he spoke to at the time that told him that, he wasn't very nice to, and he apologizes to that person that had his wrath at the time. But it is a worry that some of the props back then, the way they were taken care of is, I don't think you'd see that today. I don't know if that's different because people know.
Oh, it's totally different. In fact, John Murdy, he was the creative director at Universal Studios, and he kind of also worked with this project. Prop restoration and props savings wasn't really a thing probably throughout the 90s. Like before that, once a prop was used in a movie, it was garbage and it just took up space. The movie was the product. The props were just kind of a byproduct. And so, most of the props from before that time were, discarded. And it wasn't really until like the 90s and early 2000s where the mentality of the studios shifted, where they say, hey, once a movie is filmed, these props and these costumes really need to be cataloged. They need to be preserved. They need to be saved. They need to be displayed because fans want to see those as well. So, and now, like anytime, any prop that comes off the film now is cataloged, it's inventoried, it's saved, it's kept. And so I don't think you're ever going to have those things again.
Yeah. So what was the initial reaction for the team and yourself seeing the DeLorean in its state in the first time?
I mean, we knew what the time machine was. We know what the state it was in because we had all been visiting it constantly. It was not a surprise to us because we were the ones going onto the lot and seeing the time machine for ourselves. I mean, I know Joe and the team had been advocating for the time machine to be restored for years. And so it wasn't a surprise. It's still disheartening. Yeah. But, when they got a hold of the time machine, I think it was relief that now it was finally going to have a chance to, to have it restored. But it was, it was rough. But again, like it's easy to point to Universal Studios and say, why did you let the time machine get so bad? Mm-hmm. But I don't think what they sometimes forget is that at the time, props were not saved. The fact that Universal recognized this as a famous movie prop, they put it on display, they let fans see it. They did do minor restorations throughout the years and drove it around, and they really tried to keep it as best as they could. And so, I give them a lot of props just for even holding on to it at all.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you what, after watching, because I recently watched this Outatime documentary, and I completely forgot the fact that fans had been taking souvenirs from the car. And then when you basically talk about little things in the documentary about things being taken, and then you realize someone's took the flux capacitor. It's like, wait a minute, that's not a little thing. That's something giant. How do you miss someone taking a flux capacitor out of a car?
Yeah, see, these stories, you got to be careful because there's kind of urban legend and then there's the reality. And usually, there's a little bit of overlap where Universal, like parts were falling off the car.
Yeah.
And whether they were on the ground or they were in a box, a fan comes along and say, if I don't take this and keep it safe, this box is going to get thrown out because it looks like garbage. So are they in the right for trying to preserve something, or are they in the wrong for taking something? And that's kind of that moral middle ground, and yeah, I tend to go pretty easy on fans that took stuff, because when the restoration came along and Bob and Joe called all the fans to get the pieces back, they sent them back because
they did. Yeah.
Yeah. They wanted the car to be restored and they wanted the pieces to be cherished and loved and respected. And when they knew that's what was happening, they were happy to give their parts back. So, yes, fans took parts off the car as souvenirs. I get that, but I go very easy on that.
I think one important thing during this restoration, and you documented this as well, is how much they wanted to keep the original parts of the car rather than get new parts from DeLorean and add them on. I'm guessing quite a lot of that car is still original.
Yeah. And fans ask Joe this all the time, how much of the car is original, what percentage? And the fact is, as much of the car that could be saved as possible, we saved. And that was down to the screws, down to the individual wires and the looms. Like every single piece that came off the car was inspected, analyzed. If it could be cleaned up, repaired, restored, and put back on the car, it was everything. And so, as much of that car is original to the time machine as possible.
Wow. Well, that probably leads me on to what I was talking about to you earlier about this. It may be an urban legend, but I'm sure Joe Walser told me this. Okay.
Okay.
But the front left wing of the DeLorean apparently is one of the most rarest parts of the DeLorean cars, because obviously DeLorean had a backlog of parts, and you could probably build how many endless amounts of DeLorean from the amount of parts they had. But that front left wing was pretty hard to come by, because from what I understand, they didn't have the original die for it to mold the wing. It disappeared. And then from what I understand, that wing, that die was found as an anchor for a net. So they've actually got it back now. And I've checked this up online and it does say about that. And Joe says the reason that part, which is a really rare part of the car, was so important was why they put it in issue 1 of the
I didn't know that. Like, I definitely know about the left front fender in DeLorean fandom. Like, yes, left front fenders are the most expensive part. You don't, because that's the part that gets damaged the most easily, and so it's hard to come by. But I didn't know that's why it was in the first part. See, Joe knows everything. Joe knows everything about time machines.
For little things like that. I still remember that after all these years. I mean, last time I spoke to Joe, it was like, oh God, we're coming on near 10 years. Can you believe that? It's almost 10 years.
That's hard to believe.
Time's flying.
See, whenever I think of the buildup and I think of Joe, they coordinated with Joe to make sure the model was as accurate as possible. And he insisted that when he looked at it, like the tire treads weren't right. He goes, nope, the tire treads need to be accurate DeLorean treads. And he made sure they were correct. So like even down to the tire treads are correct. And I love that, because it's the most Joe thing ever, is like details that nobody else would notice are the first things he notices. He goes, no, fix that. And I love that.
So did they have a deadline? Was it that 1 year that they had to get it done, or did they have?
That's a good question. They did have a deadline. There was a day that Universal was coming to pick up the car. And yes, in the course of the documentary, I kind of build up to that deadline. I mean, I will say, like, I don't know if it was one deadline or if it was like what it was, but I can say though that the ending of the documentary where they're putting the finishing touches on the car, it truly was that last night. Like the last night they're trying to button it up, trying to race the deadline because Universal's coming to pick it up. They did. I wish I could have been there for the pickup, but I wasn't, because it was a weekday and we all had to work. And so, but yeah, I mean, it was down to the wire. So yeah.
Oh, excellent. And can you share a memorable moment or triumph from the restoration process that you captured on film?
a triumph from the restoration itself. There were so many small moments. I can think of so many more moments of defeat.
Yeah, I can believe that big time.
Like when I think of the restoration, I think of all those really challenging moments of just absolute frustration and defeat when you have to like, nope, take that off again. No, take it off again. There were plenty of those, but the moments of, how did you phrase it? Like victory?
Yeah. Achievement.
It's actually when something famous would go on, like the part that always comes to mind is when Ara installed the time circuits for the first time and he test fit them. Now, in the real time machine, the time circuits didn't function. You know, like that was all done in post-production. And so when Joe had Ara build the time circuits, they functioned correctly. And so he mocked up the time circuits, and Joe and Ara sit there and he flipped the switch, and by God, they came on with the little sound effect. And you're like, oh my God, that's the first time these have ever worked in the car. And you just have these moments of surrealness where you're like, Michael J. Fox sat here and saw this, and it blows your mind. So those are the moments I tend to think of, just like they just make you smile.
Excellent. And what were some of the technical difficulties in restoring a piece of film history like the DeLorean, and how did you capture those on camera?
Now, see, as you're getting into the restoration, that's much more of a Joe and the restoration team, because they will tell you that, Steve, I only videotaped it. I wasn't allowed to touch the car a whole lot because I was not a technical expert in props at the time. I mean, I helped.
Film it without getting in the way, I guess the question is.
Say that again?
How would you film it without getting in the way, though? If,
I was always in the way. I was constantly in the way. You can't avoid it. In fact, you know, like most of us had jobs, and so I would film on the weekends. So I would tell Joe, like, don't do anything interesting during the week. Save it for the weekends. And he's just like, yeah, that's really convenient, Steve. We'll save, well, you know, don't take the panels off to the weekend. Don't put the stuff onto the weekend. But so I was constantly in the way. Sorry, I totally forgot your actual question.
Yeah, I was just saying about how you basically filmed and how you kept it going without getting in the way, because you know, because you're already there at certain times when they're actually doing some of these restorations, and you might appear at a time when not really much is happening, but when something is happening, you want to get in there, I'm guessing, to get that footage. And
and I'll tell you, the truth is, after a couple months, they just got used to me. They got used to me being there, used to me asking questions, and then I was just kind of one of the team, so it got a lot easier. But you're right. Like, the problem when you shoot a documentary, especially over the course of the restoration, which was a year, is you're never sure what you're going to get or what you're going to need. So you just have to shoot it all.
Yeah.
And so I think by the time I was finished, I think we had like 50, 60, 70 hours just of restoration footage for like a featured documentary.
Yeah.
So it was a lot of extra footage of just guys working on the car.
Well, you just answered my next questions, because I was going to say, how do you balance the technical process of them doing the restoration with footage to keep viewer engagement, so to speak? So it's all in the editing.
Argue that I do it poorly. No, it's like once I got into the post-production phase and I did the interviews, then it was just a matter of like, how do we accurately tell the story? And when I did the documentary, the big thing that I wanted to do, keeping the Ecto documentary in mind, is I wanted to tell the story accurately. Like, I wanted to give fans the feeling of what it was like to actually be there. Because, you know, when you do these kind of featurettes for studios, it's very easy to gloss over. Everything was great, and we were all friends, and this was so smooth, you know, and the reality is not that.
Yeah.
And so what I really wanted to show was the real process of the struggle and the experimentation and the success and the failure and the success and the failure. And, you know, Joe had some concerns about that because he didn't want to give the impression that the team was indecisive or that they didn't know what they were doing. But my argument was that the arguing amongst the team members was the important part of the movie, because fans want to know that the team members discussed and argued about every single detail to make sure it was perfect. And so it was really conveying that sense of what it was like to be there, you know, the successes and the struggles. And what's great is when the film premiered, the guys in the restoration team saw it for the first time. They said to me, like, yeah, the movie gave me cold sweats. So that's exactly what it was like to be there. I'm like, okay, perfect. That's the best compliment I can get.
That's job done. So I you see, I picture because obviously watching the documentary, I picture a team of cameramen, boom mics, DAT tapes, all that. I'm guessing you had the bare minimal because of the space you must have had in there to actually.
Well, the space was huge. It was in Universal's ride warehouse.
Oh, right. Okay.
And so the space was gigantic because, they wanted it restored in one of their own facilities. So it was a ride warehouse north of Los Angeles. So the space wasn't the issue. The issue was my budget. Like, I had to buy a camera. I had to buy lighting gear, and Universal wasn't paying me to do it. Like, I had to take the risk of doing it myself. So I bought a Craigslist camera, a Craigslist light kit. For the vast majority of the film, I document it myself. There were special days where Bob came and we wanted 2 cameras. And so Josh Trachetta, who also produced the film, he was a second cameraman, and he brought a crane for a few of the days where we have a crane shot and some GoPro stuff. But it was never more than just the 2 of us. And most of the time it was just one of us, and just with a camera on my shoulder, and that was it.
That's cool. And did you have any problem getting access to things at Universal Studios? And was the studios quite accommodating to what you were doing?
Yes. Once the studio was on board with the film, they were super accommodating because, but it was that process beforehand where they didn't know what I was doing.
Right.
Like, Bob knew, and Bob was supportive. But again, Universal's legal department, they could have just seen the film and been like, no, you're never seeing the light of day. But thankfully, with Bob's help and his support, when I went into Universal to get their approvals, they, Bob basically told them, like, he's on the level, this is really good. And they're like, oh yeah, it's great. And then once I crossed those hurdles and I knew it was going to be on a portion of it on the Blu-ray, then it was pretty easy. Like, I got access to their footage, their photo library of all the Back to the Future behind the scenes footage. I got to look through that. Any clips that I needed, I was able to license very easily. And in fact, one of my last days is I went to Universal Studios to shoot the car in the fishbowl, not the Peterson, but where it was originally. And that was a very, very easy process. They were happy to accommodate. So yeah, once they knew that I was in the level and that my documentary was not about casting Universal in this bad light about the status of the car. Once we were past all that, they were very, very, very good to work with.
That's excellent. And do you have any, obviously being around the team, obviously doing this restoration, did you have any anecdotes or any memories of things that you didn't actually document, which you wish you had?
I would have liked to have gotten the car being dropped off and the car taken away. Like, I really wanted that big shot where Universal Studios comes and they take the finished car and Joe and all the team are standing there waving as the car goes on the flatbed and, going back to Universal Studios. I would have loved that, but they weren't there, and they just went and picked up the car during the day. It was very anticlimactic. I'm sorry I didn't get that, but I think the essence of that is there with how I think the ending that I got was pretty good.
Yeah, no, I loved it. I thought it was absolutely brilliant. And finally, how do you think Outatime has impacted things like carer props and also the creation of seeing other things restored? Is there any other things that you'd like to see restored?
Oh, I'll tell you, I would have loved to have seen the Ecto 1A restored. And the 1A was the sequel car. And I had some discussions about possibly documenting the process.
Wow.
But before I got a chance to really take off, they turned the Ecto 1A into the Afterlife Ecto. And so they didn't need to restore it. But even then, like, a time machine restoration of the A car is very different because you're in the car and you know all the bits of the car. Whereas in the Ecto, I'm a huge Ghostbusters fan, but I struggle to tell you what the inside of the Ecto is.
Yeah.
There's not these iconic things, and you don't spend time in the Ecto like you did the time machine. So I can't think of anything else that I would have wanted to document. Back to the Future is my favorite movie, and the time machine is my favorite car. So, as a fan, to get to produce a documentary that's not just like a fan documentary, but they put it on the Blu-ray and it becomes an official documentary, and suddenly you made something official of Back to the Future as a dream come true. I don't think I could top that experience.
Wow. And when was the last time you actually saw that finished car?
Oh, probably in 2019. I used to go to the Peterson quite frequently. I actually lived really close by, and so I would always take time to go there and see it. In fact, the premiere of Outatime was at the Peterson, which was the most that was the most surreal thing of this entire process, is the fact that when they screened my film, you're watching my documentary and the finished car is right there in the crowd. And like, it's like so bizarre and so surreal to be there and see the A car with my film. It was amazing.
Well, I've got 45 seconds of footage here. This is the Peterson Museum in 2022, so not too long ago. But here's the A car.
Oh,
I'm telling you, Steve, I was emotional when I saw that for the first time. It was crazy, absolutely crazy.
I get emotional about it still seeing it. It's hard to believe that's the same car.
Oh, bless. But people, if you haven't seen the Outatime Restoring the DeLorean film, it's available on Blu-ray, DVD, and Vimeo, and I have put a link in the video description. There's also a QR code on the screen. But Steve, thank you for joining me today. It's been brilliant. Absolutely.
You're welcome.
Brilliant.
And I want to point out, by the way, the Blu-rays and DVDs are region free, because I always get everybody overseas is always asking, can I play them? They're all region free. And whether you order it through Amazon or through my store, it's still me. You're still buying them from me. So
Steve, thank you very much.
Oh, it's been wonderful. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
I'm sure you'll agree that was absolutely brilliant. But I got so wrapped up in doing the interview, still got to do the stage. So let's do that now. So we should be able to whiz through this side now. So basically we've got this door catch, which is going into this side first, looking like that. Held in with JP screws. Did I use the plural then? I don't know why, because it's only one screw. We've got this one going on this side over here. Again, held in with a JP screw. Then I'm putting these lights in and praying that I get the right one. So I think this one's red. I think this one's red, which goes over here, which means this amberish yellowish one, I'm hoping, is just going into this side over here. And then we just got to put the brackets in for these. So the bracket with the lug in the center is going over this one just here. And these are held in with KP screws. I've got the bracket for the amberish one just going in here, held in with a KP screw. And then I've got this gold looking one here, which is going to be going over the red one on this side. One side goes on the lug. It's held in with a different screw, this one. These are held in with the AP screws, just into the position here. Put that to one side and we're just going to thread this belt through again. So I want it this way round, put this catch through this side, out the other side. And then bring the back of this through itself. There we go. We've got another catch in place. That is going to go into, let's put it around the right way, the indent just here. Make sure it goes flush into there, and then from the other side again, one of these AP screws. Actually, it takes two of these AP screws. And then finally, we've got this control panel for this side, exactly like when we first started this pack up. And again, AP screws to hold that in. Now, in the next pack, I must remember to attach this to the door card at the correct time, because, you know, I forgot this time. But there you go. That is all there is to do in that stage. That is all there is to do in that pack. What an amazing episode to say that I also got to interview Steve Concotelli as well. Now, I think we should do more of that sort of thing. We'll have to see if I can get people on that have got something to do with the build. I think that'd be pretty cool. But Steve's next article is going to be in issue 72, so hopefully that will be coming in the next few weeks. Now, if you do want to get this for yourself, you will have to check it's in your territory. I have put a link in the video description, and there is also that QR code on the screen, but I really hope you liked that video. If you did, please remember to give me a thumbs up, and if you haven't subscribed already, please remember to subscribe. Other than that, take care.